No date, no month. Dearest love, sweet Veronica, how I miss you. It seems like eons, so much has changed, but I think of you all the time. I'm writing this at night. I don't know if you'll ever read this, and still I write it by the flickering light of the candle under the stars on this clear night. I write thinking of you, and I write so I may make sense of it. I had arrived in Memphis for the show. It was right after the dams were destroyed in China and Arizona. The country was a mess, and power from some of the coal-burning stations was being routed to the affected areas. The promoters of the show thought that they should cancel, but I remember being told backstage that the US government wanted the show to go on, to give the people a sense that all was normal and well. I knew that something was wrong before I got to the festival area. I couldn't get a car to drive and had to take a water taxi. The inboard engine boat, Team William, picked me and others up and brought us to the Riverside Park where the stage and seats had been set up. I remember the first rumble in the sky because a kid on the boat jumped in fright. The boat was owned by William and run by he and his wife. Their kid couldn't have been older than 5 at the time, and he was the one scared of the thunder. I left the boat and walked through the backstage, talking with people, hearing about how the federal government had donated the diesel-powered electric generators that were powering the lights and sound system. And then I saw you. You were such a brilliant sight to behold. We rushed to each other and hugged, and you pressed your lips to mine, and I wished the kiss would never end. I lifted you and spun you around, and you laughed. I put you down, and we looked into each other's eyes and smiled. But you were busy and preparing, and Barbara came from your dressing room and told you that there was one more video shoot for you to do backstage to be included in the package that would be sold as a DVD of the performance. You stopped while she was leading you away and pulled the stack of letters from your shoulder bag and handed them to me. Your fingers wrapped around the papers touched my palm, and I will never forget the beautifully confident look in your eyes. And then you turned and walked back towards your dressing room. Barbara looked at me, and realizing I was the boyfriend, she said that she wanted to talk with me, and we could do such while you were on stage. Then she told me to wander and mingle for the next half hour. All I wanted to do, though, was read through the letters. It was too loud in the backstage area, so I walked outside back towards the Team William. The mother of the crew, William's wife, noticed I was reading near the boat. She recognized me as one of her passengers and asked me to keep watch on the boat and her boy, who was on the boat, for a minute as she went to pull her husband from his friend who was selling T-shirts around the front of the pavilion. I nodded, and she told the boy to stay in the boat. She walked toward the front of the area where some of the crowd that had not yet entered into the stage area were still standing. I was not through the first letter I had sent to you, the one I had written while driving to California, when the thunder started in fast successive claps. There was no rain, but an unusually cold wind rolled in dark clouds, and then it all happened. It happened so fast that I remember it only as tiny slices of time. The images burned into my brain from the lightning flashes, red lightning, like nothing I had ever seen. The bolts careened through the sky into the seating area, and I could hear the screams of the crowd. A series of bolts preceded an explosion, and the lights went out, and the screams rose in volume. I saw another bolt tear through the roof of the backstage area, and my heart leapt in fright. I heard the voices from the kid's mother and father, and the kid's scared cry out to his parents. A stream of red struck the nearest scaffold that held speakers, and it crashed backwards, landing on the boy's parents. I looked at the boy, and then at the backstage area, and damn me for thinking that I couldn't leave the kid, and curse me for believing that Barbara would see that you could get to safety. The ground began to shake, and the kid wailed in terror. People began running from the area. I pulled the mooring ropes from the dock and jumped into the boat. The engine was on, and I pressed the vessel out onto the water. I didn't look back, but heard the screams and cries, and saw the sky ablaze with a light of destruction, and I thought it was the end of the world. But it stopped. It lasted for quite some time, but it stopped. The kid and I were alone on the river. After he believed that I wasn't going to hurt him, he fell asleep, and I took stock of the provisions on the boat. I brought us to shore and found the area decimated, bodies and wreckage and rubble from a once mighty world. I looked around and gathered some wood to use as fuel for the boat's main engine, which I discovered was a refitted steam engine. I took the boat north in search of survivors of the Grand Reduction, as it has since been called, and eventually found some. Oh, those first months were horrible, primal at times, defending the kid, chasing off people who were mad with fear, locating fuel. Luckily, we could take to the water and fish and collect rainwater. The kid was something else. I asked him his name, but he never told me. I think he liked that I called him Kid. I've been looking after him for quite some time. I raised him as though he was our son, and I often think of you. Sometimes the old world seems like a dream, and I'm not sure if it really happened. But then I have the letters to prove it, and my mind seems right again. People have accepted the Grand Reduction. They've formed into communities again, and I spend most of my time puttering up and down the river trading with the different communities. Not much fear these days, just a new form of the world becoming from the ashes of the old. When I would bring the boat to dock, the people I would trade with assume my name was William, and I didn't correct them. What is really in a name? Still, I scraped some of the paint off the side and added a little to the name. So they call me and the boat Steamboat Willi. I've asked around on land about Ronnie Chet, and people remember you. They even quote some of your routines. You made so many people happy, my darling, and that makes this so much more difficult for me. They may remember Ronnie Chet, but I know you as Veronica, my dear sweet Veronica, who I love truly with all the deepest capacities of my soul. And I know you love me, and you were smart enough to never love a fool. It has been more than a few years since the grand reduction. I can tell because the kid is well into his adolescence. It is time that I admit what I've known since I pulled away from the dock that night. You have left this world after bringing in much joy. I can still love you, love the memories I have, but I cannot keep thinking that you are still alive because it is maddening, and I need to be level-headed if I am to continue surviving and teach the kid how to survive with equal, if not better, zeal. And so, I cast out not your spirit and essence, nor my love for you, but the dream of finding you alive in this world again. I shall never forget you. Your name shall forever evoke in me recollection of the best times of my life. All of my love to you forever and always. Kevin.